Good evening and
Smith.
good evening and thank you for attending tonight. It looks like this session will have more participants than we've had in the past. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy week schedule and probably getting away from shoveling snow to attend tonight. Before we start, as Ross said, and as Bob will repeat during the session, it is very important that you folks leave yourself on mute. Double check to make sure that you are on mute, take it off to speak, and then put it right back on mute. I'm going to apologize right now for some of the words that were said in the last session with game management. They came through, and please, if you have people in the background and they're talking, make sure they are not using foul language. We do not need any more F-bombs on these presentations. So at this point, once again, thank you so much for being on tonight, and I'm going to turn this over to Bob.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining tonight. Our presentation for this evening is Back to the Basics. This is a variation of what I use for beginning umpires, but knowing that we have a veteran crew on that tonight, as I look through the list, I don't see very many rookies on here. So we're going to go through the elements of a successful umpire and what that means to you and what you should be looking for and maybe helping that new umpire out as well. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So what are the elements of a successful umpire? Open for discussion here, right? So if you have a comment, unmute yourself, answer the question, and then mute yourself back.
Looking like one.
Okay, looking like one.
Prepared.
Being
prepared.
being open to
Being open to and then I
comments,
missed it.
open
Okay.
open comments, and
Approachability.
Knowing the rules.
Okay,
Proper mechanics.
proper mechanics. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to 5, and I think you guys hit them all. So the first one, rules knowledge, right? When I look at the rule book, I see 12 rules. That's not too difficult to overcome, right? Let me give you a little bit of a clue. Number 12 is pretty simple. Number 12 said these rules are for USA tournament softball and should be used accordingly. And if you're going to use them for something else, they can be altered. So now you only have 11 to worry about, right? So obviously each rule is broken down into various parts, and that's where the complication comes in. But that's where we need to focus. When working with a new umpire, or if you're a new umpire yourself, rule number 1 is probably the most important. And can somebody tell me what rule number 1 is?
Definitions.
Definitions. All right, so as we go through these definitions, a lot of them are pretty simple, right? Base on ball, what's a baseline, what's a base path? Some of these are often, mixed up for each other. Baseline and base path, right? For example. But so give me an example, or let me ask you, what's a blocked ball?
A ball that the players can't get to.
A ball that players can't get to.
A ball that gets lodged in something.
Okay. Anybody else?
A ball that gets that hits an object that doesn't belong on the field.
Okay. So let me give you the definition. A batted, pitched, or thrown ball that is touched, stopped, or handled by a person not engaged in the game, or which touches loose equipment or any object that is not part of official equipment or official playing area. Okay. So again, when we're going through these things, it's important to know what these definitions are, particularly as we read through the rule books and how they apply to the actual rule themselves, right? Also when communicating with the coaches. So let me ask you another question. Pivot foot. Can somebody define a pivot foot?
That's the foot that stays on the rubber during your pitching motion.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll make a correction to that it's the foot that stays on the pitching plate.
Okay.
It could also be the foot that remains in contact with the base.
Okay. For in terms of what we're looking for, it is related to the pitcher's plate.
Okay.
Used for pushing off, right? It remains in contact until you push off. Okay. And that's for fast pitch and slow pitch. However, in slow pitch, it indicates that it's the pitch, the foot that remains in contact with the plate until the ball is released. Okay. Because you don't have to take a step in slow pitch to throw a ball. You don't really have to take a step to or throw a pitch in fast pitch either, but you're probably not going to have a very fast pitch if you don't take a step, right? All right. So these are just a couple of examples of understanding the rules, at least definition one, rule one for definitions. And then these terms are also used in the various other definitions for, definition number 2, which is the playing fields, and definition 3, which is the equipment. And then moving on from there, definition 4 is the players, coaches, and substitutes. So you can see where these different definitions come into play during those rules. Next, we talked about mechanics and signals, okay? You got to know your mechanics, got to know your signals. All right? Communication. Communication is the key, right? Communication with your partner, communication with the coaches, communication. I know we're talking USA softball, but communication with your assigners, communication with UICs, right? Game management. This is how you conduct the game, right? And the things that happen inside the game. All right. And then self-control. So those are the 5 steps, or 5 real important aspects of becoming a good umpire. Today, we're going to focus on our things that we can control before we step on the field. Okay, so what are the things that we can control before we step on the field?
Demeanor.
Attitude. Attitude.
Communication with your umpire.
What was that?
Communication with your umpire.
Communication
Your
with
umpire.
communication with your partner.
Yes.
Okay,
Whether we take a game or not.
whether you accept it or not. Yep. So somebody said appearance earlier, so we can take care of our appearance early, right? Make sure our uniforms are pressed. Make sure that if we need to, we're shaved, right? Or our beard is in good looking condition, right? We talked about rules knowledge already a little bit, right? Missed one there. Conditioning. It's coming in. It's a little slow there. Conditioning. Are you ready for the game? Right? The high school girls have started. Have you? Are you ready to go 7 innings or 14 or a tournament?
Yep.
Okay. Being prompt for an assignment, right? whether it's during just a single game for a league night, or if it's a tournament game, being there for your tournament early, being ready for the UIC meeting and the umpire meeting, being early to the diamond when the UIC asks you to be there 15 minutes before your game starts, or at least keeping an eye on the game as it's ending, so you're there ready for when it's ready to go your next time, right? Mechanics, signals. All right, so we're going to talk some signals today, right? We know that there's a bunch of them out there. I've selected a few that are rather important, at least on the basics. So let's get started with those. Why do we use signals?
It's a form of communication.
A form of communication. Okay. Anything else? Who are we communicating with?
With the
The
fans,
ladder.
the players, the coaches, everybody that's on the field or involved in the game in one way or another.
Okay. So why is it important to use proper signals?
To me, it's to let my other umpire know what we're doing.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about holding up the play first of all. All right. Holding up the play. I'm not going to read this to you, but basically we're going to stand there behind the plate with our hand up, holding the pitcher up, right? Here's a different view, just a different guy, different angle. All right. When should we use this?
Base players have not returned to bases.
Okay.
If the pitcher is trying to quick pitch almost every single time, just try to slow him up a little bit.
Okay.
Batter not ready.
All right.
Umpire not ready.
Okay. All right.
People still walking the dugout from being thrown out.
Yep. Anytime there's a delay, that's keeping play from happening, right? All right. Play ball. Play ball is indicated normally after we've held up play, right? And it's just a matter of taking your hand from the hold up position, pointing at the pitcher or calling for the ball, right? So here we have an umpire holding up play. And calling for the ball. All right.
Bob, this is Brian. Can I interject for a second?
Absolutely.
Guys, keep in mind with this that it says opposite the hand of the batter. If you think about this for a minute, if you have a right-handed batter, you use the right hand. If you have a left-handed batter, you use the left hand to hold up play. Part of that is that makes it easier for us to remember the opposite hand, right on right, so forth. The other reason why we look at using the opposite hand or the open hand is that if we use the one that's closest to the batter, it blends into the batter, and the pitcher may not be able to pick that up. And that's one of the main reasons why we have hold up play. When we use the one for play ball, the same thing. And if you notice in this picture that Bob had the video there, keep this in mind also, is that when you're ready to play, make sure you're ready to play and not doing this as you're trying to get set and so forth and hurrying yourself. You're in control of the game, so control the game, control the pitcher, make sure that you're ready before you tell everybody else to play ball.
And I'll add on top of this, this is really important when the players are as big as you are or bigger. In the younger JO games, you might be able to get away with it because you're taller than they are and over the top of them. But when the ball players are the same size as you are, giving it out in the middle of the plate, sometimes you may actually step forward to give this dead ball or hold up play, bring the pitch, so they can all see you in that regards, right?
Bob,
Yeah,
it's gonna be really important this year because we're only giving them 5 seconds to pitch a ball.
yep.
So when we say play ball, we all better be ready.
That is true. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in our slow pitch session coming up here in a couple weeks. In particular. Okay. Dead ball, timeout, no pitch, foul ball. Okay. Standing straight up, facing square to the plate, both hands in the air, and making a verbalized call for what you're doing. Okay. Again, having a real picture of a person do it as opposed to just a drawing. And when we do this, particularly when we're behind the plate, now we're going to hold up play with our one hand, call for the pitch, right? Depending on the scenario. All right, routine safe call. Moving from our set position to a stand-up position, shoulders, our feet shoulder width apart, facing the play with eyes on the ball. Bringing both hands to the chest, out, shoulders shoulder high, extending them, bringing them back down, ready to roll again. Okay, and then back down to your ready position so you can be ready to move. Cell safe. I will tell you that I did not take a picture of myself on this for all of you as you know me. Cell safe, very much the same manner as far as your arm motion as a regular safe, but we're taking a forceful step forward, bringing with our left foot, bringing our right foot up and ready to go. So again, we start there in our hands together, take a step as we bring our arms out, put our arms down as we follow through with the back step. Routine out. This is also a strike. Standing upright with our feet shoulder width apart, facing square to the plate with eyes on the ball. Bring your left up belt high or somewhere in the belly section, if you will. Bring your right up, bring your right arm to a 90-degree angle. We want to have it back far enough that you're not looking at your arm. We don't want it out in front of you. So you're not being, what do I want to say there? We just don't want it in front of you. We want it to the side. We want your knuckles facing your face as opposed to having your knuckles facing forward. Once we make the call, we're dropping our arm back to our sides, and then we're turning for another play. If we're doing a strike, the strike should be verbalized in the set position, and then this strike signal should be given when you're standing up. Okay. Sellout. Sellout is a little bit more complicated. This is more of a dance routine. The easiest way to explain this one is basically picking up a ball and throwing the ball, if you will. I know that back in the day, they used to have a whole dance step routine written out in the book for how to get this accomplished. But the easiest way to explain this is basically throw a ball. This is the one signal that we do allow left-handed folks to be able to throw left-handed for an out, as opposed to having them do it with the right hand, simply because of the awkward nature of trying to throw with your opposite hand. However, I know that there are a lot of left-handed folks that have learned how to do this very well with their right hands. So again, set position, bringing your arm back, taking that step, throwing the ball, following through, getting in your set position. Okay. Fair ball. Fair ball is facing square to the play, pointing to fair territory with your raised inside arm and no higher than your shoulder, and parallel to the ground. And then we do not verbalize this fair ball call. How many times have we been told by players that you didn't say anything, and how do I know that it's fair? Right? We get it a lot, don't we? You didn't say anything. I'm not supposed to. All right? All right.
Hey, Bob, can you pull that
Yes.
picture back again, please?
That one?
Yes. I'm trying to, okay. So that's a prime example of a play that I was just going to bring up here on one of the things that we need to do on every one of these calls that Bob's talking about. You must start, or you should be starting at a set position and be stopped before you make your call. If you notice this person is still moving, doesn't need to. If we stop, our eyes are not moving, and now we can go from there when we make the fair foul signals. So go ahead, Bob.
Okay. That's my last signal that I have. I know there's plenty of other ones that we could go through, right? Why are we going through these, particularly with the veterans, right? The answer is we're not doing them consistently. A lot of us are doing just like that umpire is there, walking through that call, whether it's a fly ball out, a fair ball bunt, right? That's been touched and we're signaling it's fair. So we got to stop, see the play, make the call, move to your next position. All right. The other part of that is all you all on this call are leaders in this profession, and we need you to be able to help the youngsters out. And what I mean by youngsters, obviously, is less experienced umpires than what we are. Help them out with their mechanics and their signals as well. Mike Almack, you have a question or a comment?
My initial thought seeing this was that he was moving out from behind the plate toward first base to cover the play. But then I realized if that's what he was doing, he should have been pointing away from him, pointing the other way.
Right. He would have been, if he was up the first baseline, he would have been pointing with his left hand.
Yeah, he's pointing toward the infield instead of pointing into the,
You are correct. Sorry, that's the best picture I could find. But you're right.
Actually, why I had you stop, Bob, when I first looked at that, I thought he was pointing across his body at first. So but then he's still moving. So that's one of the things we want to look at. So don't point across your body as you're giving a signal either.
Right. And in this particular case, he's actually not square with the play, right? So to Mike's point, to Brian's point, this actually would be a left-handed call and his body would be turned towards first baseline.
What I do like is he appears to be on the line. That's one of the problems we've had as of late, is the home plate umpire getting to the fair foul line so they can make a better call, or at least to have a better perception of where that call is, instead of making that fair foul call 2 feet off the line.
But
Okay.
where that kid is standing, he's way behind that. He's way late with that call. If that ball was down the third baseline.
Right.
Here's what I'm seeing here. The batter's box is right behind his left foot. What I think it was a bunt. The catcher fielded it and he was pointing fair to let everybody know it was a fair ball. That's what I'm seeing
Yep. I agree.
on the third baseline.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, let's talk some mechanics. What are mechanics? And don't tell me some guy that works on your car or truck.
It's a singing group.
All right.
How we do things.
Okay.
Something we're supposed to do all the time.
All right. Why is it important to use proper mechanics?
So we can get to be where we're supposed to be.
So we can be where we're supposed to be or start where we're supposed to start, right? To help us get into the best position to make a call on a play that we can be. So plate mechanics. Okay. So can somebody tell me what the definition of plate mechanics is according to our book without looking it up? All right, I'll go ahead and put it out there. Plate mechanics begins with calling balls and strikes and ends with the required movement by the umpire to complete their duties. Now, that being said, there's 4 basic parts, right? So this includes the stance, the set position, the pitch, and then the movement from the plate after the pitch. Let's take a look at each one of these. Plate mechanics, the stance. So can somebody tell me, hang on one second. I don't want that there either. What can somebody tell me about the stance?
In the slot.
Okay, in the slot.
Heel toe.
Heel toe.
Being able to see the whole plate.
Okay. So first of all, this is the foundation of good plate mechanics, right? If you have a poor stance, your plate mechanics aren't probably going to be very good either. So again, we've talked about foot position or feet position, the distance from the catcher to or the plate, depending on your game, and then head movement, right? This is the position an umpire assumes when calling balls or strikes. And we talked about this. We must start in a slot position. So what's the slot position?
Between the batter and the catcher.
Okay.
Looking kind of at an angle.
Okay. How far inside should you be?
Being able to see the plate and 90 degrees to the pitcher.
Okay.
If possible, put your ear, the inside ear on the edge of the plate. So
Okay.
you're between the slot of the catcher and the batter with your ear on the corner side of the plate.
All right, so why do we do that?
To get a clear view without the catcher or the batter being in our way.
Okay. What else?
To get the best possible strike zone that you have.
Okay.
See the
So
outside corner.
So being on that inside corner kind of establishes what your inside corner is too, right?
Yep.
So if we're looking to the left on a right-handed batter, it's probably way out, way inside, right? So that's probably going to be a ball. All right. I'm going to skip the one good pelvic alignment for a second. Be at the top of the strike zone. So why do we want to be at the top of the strike zone?
Anything above that's not a strike.
Right. So kind of the same reasoning, right? So now we've basically got 2 corners out of the 4 corners that we need, right? We got the top part of the strike zone. We got the inside part of the strike zone. All right. Good pelvic alignment, or GPA. What is that?
Your belt buckle should be pointing to the outside front corner of home plate.
Okay. And in a long distance position, it would be probably pointing in a normal second baseman's position as well, or shortstop, right? So that also helps us get our good heel toe alignment. All right. And then we can kind of turn our shoulders and head a little bit to get into that position that we're looking directly at the pitcher. Okay. So now we're going to move at the start of the pitch. Where are we moving to?
Slightly down.
Okay. We're going to move to the top of that strike zone position, right? Because we should be standing up. At the start of the pitch, we're going to move down to the top of that strike zone position. Be sure that we're bending our knees, not our back. Okay. Our back is going to move forward a little bit for sure, but we want to put all that pressure on our buttocks and thighs. That's where those are the 2 biggest muscles you have. Work them. They'll save you in the long run. All right. And then we want to make sure that we're assuming the same position on both sides of the plate, right? So that's just a matter of getting practice, lining up accordingly. More often than not, I see, particularly in the slow pitch game, that we are very, very good at achieving that slot position with a right-handed batter. But we seem to tuck ourselves in almost behind the plate or behind the catcher on a left-handed batter. We want to try and have that same positioning on the left-handed batter as well. I will be sure that I take more notice on the fast pitch game as I venture into that arena a little more, as Jason has indicated that I'm headed. But that's what we're seeing, particularly in the slow pitch game. People are comfortable out on that right-handed batter, but not so much so on the left-handed batter. So the goal is to have that same position on right-handed and left-handed batters. So that way your strike zone is consistent on either side of the plate.
Bob, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I've done a few tournaments as a UIC, and what you're saying is exactly true. The left-handed, the umpires have no problem with the right-hand side, but they are having problems on, I have no problems on the right-hand side, but they are having problems with the left-hand side. Okay, they are tucked between.
Yep. All right.
Bob, in regards to the fast pitch game, it's the same thing. In fact, I think in fast pitch, we do more of it on the left side because we're trying to compensate for the catcher's throwing arm, because a lot of the catchers are right-handed. Same in the game of slow pitch. We try to compensate for that. And what we find in fast pitch more than we do in slow pitch is that they set up more square, which now brings them farther away from the plate on a left-handed batter than they do on a right-handed batter, which now will change the perception of the strike zone.
Okay. And if we're set up too square, we also have a harder time seeing that outside pitch.
I have found I have a better heel toe left side because I think about it more. With the right side, I just do it.
Yep. All right. Next part of our plate mechanic is the pitch. Okay. Calling the pitch is where the plate umpire puts the stance and the set position to work. All right. So first things first. Be sure that all are ready to start the game or when the pitch has been prevented from being delivered by the umpire. Thus, the hold up, play ball signals, right? Again, as we talked earlier, make sure that it's the hand that's away from the batter, or if it's a right-handed batter, use your right hand. If it's a left-handed batter, use your left hand. Track the ball from the pitcher's hand to the catcher's glove or ground. Okay. I went to Jason's clinic a week ago, and I wasn't doing that so much on the fast pitch game, and Brian called me out on it. Thank you. And I mean that in all sincerity, because it makes a big difference as far as the distance gained by tracking that pitch with your nose and how much more you're giving for that outside call. So make sure that we're tracking that pitch by turning our head and following the ball that way. After the ball is in the glove or hits the ground in slow pitch, pause and make your call. We're still in our set position. We haven't done anything, okay? We're going to make the verbal call at that point. The verbal part of the call should be made while we're in a set position. I just resaid that. The signal, if there is one, should be made from the standing or upright position. Okay, so if it's a strike, we're going to call strike while we're down. Basically, we're going to stand up, make our strike signal. Okay. And then after each pitch, provided it's not hit, step out, relax, reset, and then restart the process. Okay, just take a second. Doesn't have to be any long production. Okay, you have that second because the pitcher's got to take the signal. We got to get the ball back from the catcher, everything like that. Now, we don't have to hold up each pitch, right, for us to do that. Be ready on your own. But it does take a second to reset, restart the process, and it just kind of clears your head and gets you ready for the next pitch.
Bob, question. Yep. And I know you said we'd cover this in the slow pitch thing, but with the 5 seconds now in slow pitch, you're not going to have much time to step out, relax, and get back in position.
Bob, I can answer that.
Okay.
They can't pitch the ball until you say play ball. Then they have 5 seconds.
Right. We're also not going to let them quick pitch either, right? So
that's right.
It's really a game management piece. And as I said, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but I think if we have good game management, we don't need to worry about this 5 or 10 second rule. It's really to avoid this cat and mouse game between the catcher and the pitcher. Basically, we're going to hold up the pitcher, get the catcher or the batter set, tell the pitcher to throw the ball. If they're going to Mickey Mouse and dance around, then, we have opportunities both now with a penalty on the pitcher and the catcher, pitcher and the batter if they're not ready or step out without calling time to be able to penalize them in that regards. I would say use your best judgment in that regards. I don't know that I've seen a lot of instances where we have a lot of issues with that. The one thing we don't want, however, is that quick pitch scenario either. They still got to pause. They got to catch the ball. They got to pause. Then they got to pitch. You got time to step out, relax, reset, step in. It doesn't have to be 5 seconds long. It's just step out, step back in. Normally you can get that by the time or pretty close to by the time the pitcher has the ball back from the catcher.
Bob, I have a question on, are we calling pitches balls? Or are we just not saying anything and it's assumed a ball?
So my philosophy, and this is purely my philosophy, if a pitch is worth throwing, a pitch is worth calling. So I would say yes, call ball.
Unless it's painfully obvious.
There are times.
Bob, my thing is being, I've been a UIC for some tournaments. I just don't want to see the umpires counting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we need to. Again, I think it's a game management tool as far as that 5 seconds are concerned. And I'll tell you, the rule really happened or is based on a little bit of what happened in the supers last year. And it really was revolved around the Mickey Mouse between the pitcher and the batter.
I understand that. It's just that I don't want our umpires and our teams to think that we're out for them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just let them play
I'm with
ball.
you 100%.
Our job is to call ball strikes, safes, and outs. It isn't to control the game. Let them play the game.
Yep. Okay. Plate mechanics, movement from the plate. The good plate umpire realizes that they not only require to call balls and strikes, but must be able to move to cover other responsibilities. Okay. So, what are the other responsibilities? Okay. On a batted ball or on a ball that eludes the catcher. Okay, this could be a pass ball, it could be a foul ball, it could be a number of things, right? Could be one that he or she drops, right? In slow pitch, it could be just one that gets past them. So you got to get out of the way, know where the ball is. And that's a matter of, in most cases, just opening up, letting the catcher have their movement, following the ball, watch the ball back to the pitcher, closing the door again, if you will, and be ready to play. All right. We have responsibilities on a batted ball with no runners on, no runners or a single runner on base when the ball is hit. Okay. We also have other responsibilities with multiple runners on base and the ball is hit. So we got to know the difference between the two, right? How we're trailing the batter runner on one. We're not trailing the batter runner on the other, but we still may be keeping an eye on the play as well. Okay. Plate umpire has fair and foul ball responsibilities on the infield. Right? Ball rolling down the line. They have it. They have that responsibility. And where are you going to be? So in that picture that we showed that plate umpire calling fair, if that ball's rolling down to the first baseline, obviously he's not in the right spot. So get in the right spot. We have those responsibilities. We have also responsibilities for balls hit to the outfield. And I'm going to skip one near the foul line, right? Again, our responsibility is fair foul on all hit balls with the exception of when our partner goes out. Okay, that's the only exception. When our partner goes out, they take that responsibility from us. Okay, if it's in a 2 umpire situation, and they go out, you got runner responsibilities. I'm not worried about fair foul at that point. I'm making sure people are hitting bases or tagging up or whatever it needs to be happening, right? We also have different movement when the ball is hit to the outfield and not near the foul line. We're trying to get a good angle to see if that ball is caught, and achieving that angle or getting to a point where we have a good angle, stop, see the catch, make the call, move to your next position. All right. We have responsibilities for a ball hit over the fence. Okay. Little bit different responsibilities in the fast pitch game than the slow pitch game, because we have to make sure that everybody's touching all the bases in the fast pitch game. We don't have a hit and sit opportunity at this point in the fast pitch game. So we got to make sure that they're hitting home plate, right? We have movement to third base, and we also have plays at home, right? Any questions on plate mechanics? Again, these are just the basics. We have lot of opportunities for plate mechanics, and we can get into nitty gritty, but these are the basics to get somebody through the game. Comments? Thoughts? Hearing none. Okay.
Just sometimes you have to, you got that holding zone.
Yep.
I would say too, Bob, that that getting out of that set position after each pitch, resetting, relaxing, has really helped me immensely. I used to be just like a statue back there behind the plate after every pitch. And then I started going to some nationals and the UICs out there, you know, that's really kind of where I first kind of heard that. And I think it's really helped me quite a bit myself. So that's one of the good things I've picked up.
And it may not even be leaving your position altogether. It might be just on a right-handed batter, taking your left foot, stepping backwards with your left foot, putting the weight on that foot, and then stepping back forward again. It doesn't have to be much more than that, right? So we're just really, it just gives us a second to refocus on the next pitch and move on from there. So, all right. Any other thoughts or comments? All right, base mechanics. I will tell you that I didn't go in as much depth on base mechanics at this point. But base mechanics begin with fundamentals of positioning. All right. That's really where it starts. Then comes the timing, judgment, signals, and the call. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that initial positioning. First of all, with nobody on, we're walking the line. What does it mean to walk the line?
Take 1 or 2 steps towards home plate and have your left foot the last step so you can take off to head on the infield if you need be.
Okay. Why do we walk the line?
Get the base umpire moving.
And it gets us some motion.
Okay. Gets us in motion, gets us focused on what we need to do, gets us moving.
To get inside the diamond before the batter base runner comes to first base.
In some cases, to get that head start. Yep, I agree with that. Okay. So if we're not on the line, we're getting into a ready position. So what is a ready position?
Slight bend in the knees.
Okay, slight bend in the knees, be on the balls of your feet, ready to move. And in some cases, you may even take a small step, just like you would do walking the line. And that really just helps you get in motion the same way as walking the line, right? So really, it's just getting getting our body in motion and ready to move. Okay. So while we're in these positions, I'm going to add something here. What should you be doing?
Concentrating on the plays.
Concentrating on the play.
Make sure base runners are not leaving the base until the ball's across the front of the plate.
Okay.
Well, we wouldn't be on the line if we were there.
Pre-pitch mechanics, know what you're gonna be doing depending on where the ball is hit.
That's what I'm looking for. Pre-pitch planning. Okay. And that's where this next line comes in. Be students of the game into determining your starting position and what you're going to do once you're there and why are you there? Okay. What are you going to do on a fly ball? What are you going to do on a ground ball? Kind of listen to the infielders, right? So listen to your shortstop and second baseman talking. Who's taking the call at second, or who's taking the play or throw at second base, right? Who's got the base on a steal, right? So you kind of listen to that a little bit so you know where the ball is going to and what angle that you may need to get. It might be a little bit different than, the positioning might be a little different for the shortstop receiving the ball than it is for the second baseman receiving the ball, right? And then it helps us get our angles and distance, right? And angles and distance I have on here. We have part of the presentation a little bit farther. But I think this has been our hour. And these are really the things that I wanted to touch base with you all on, is the signals and mechanics that USA softball has put together for us. We need to continue to take the time to work on these signals, understand the mechanics. The big thing is go to your mirror, right? We spend a lot of time in our national schools, in particular, going over basic signals so we can all do them correctly and precisely. So the reason we do that is a strike call from an umpire in Michigan should look no different than a strike call from somebody from New Mexico, right? It means the same thing. It looks the same thing. I know we've all watched some baseball when the umpire calls a strike and you have no idea what his mechanic just did. He just kind of flicks a finger, right? Really? Who sees that, right? So again, we're not necessarily trying to create robots, but we're trying to get some consistency so everybody, no matter who you are around the world, in particular, right? Japan is using the same mechanics as USA, is same as Australia, and we can all umpire together and do the same game together. So that's the reason why we have our mechanics that we do, and also the signals that we have. That's my presentation for the evening. Thank you for your attendance and participation. Comments, Ross?
Questions for the YouTube viewers?
What's that?
Yeah, I'll get to those in a minute, Dan. Thank you. Bob, thank you very much for this presentation. A nice job going over the basics, and it's very tough when you're going over some of this stuff virtually instead of being in person. The session that Bob talked about briefly for next week, we will be covering angles and distance. We'll also be covering a 2-umpire system. This will cover both games in fast pitch and slow pitch. So we'll cover both parts of that. At this point, we're going to try to keep it still at 1 hour for all of us. So I will be in charge of that session. So I will do my best to do it that way. If you are viewing this session as far as a taped session afterwards, there's 2 questions that I would like to have you send to me, or the answers to those 2 questions, to the email address of bsmithump@att.net. The first question is how many signals were described by Bob at the beginning of the session? The second question is what is rule 1? So those will be the 2 that I will need the answers to verify that you have seen this session. I'm going to turn this back over to Bob for his closing comments. And so he can wrap it up. This was his presentation, so I will let him sign off tonight. For once again, state staff members, stay on at the end of this session, and we will have a brief meeting.
All right, once again, I would like to say thank you all for joining me and discussing this. Again, I realize it's a very basic topic for most of us, but as leaders in the program, I do ask you to be aware of what you're doing out on the field as you are our example. And in addition to that, if you do see something that needs to be corrected, either talk to the UIC in the tournament, or don't be afraid to talk to your peers and let them know something that you see that might be able to help them out as well. We all, have little flaws, little things that we need correction on. So don't be afraid to speak up either. So with that, thank you very much for your attendance once again. I appreciate everything, and I'm going to wish you all a great evening. Thank you very much.
Brian,
Bob, you can stop the recording.
Brian.